Our link is in the chat. Miracles as True Perception, Chapter 3, Section 2. So here it is. I have stated, and remember this is Christ, this is self talking, this is our self speaking. We read this as if we wrote this. I have stated that the basic concepts referred to in this course are not matters of degree. Certain fundamental concepts cannot be understood in terms of opposites. It is impossible to conceive of light and darkness, or everything and nothing as joint possibilities. They are all true or all false. It is essential that you realize your thinking will be erratic until a firm commitment to one or the other is made. A firm commitment to darkness or nothingness, however, is impossible. No one has ever lived who has not experienced some light and something. No one, therefore, is able to deny truth totally, even if he thinks he can. Innocence is not a partial attribute. It is not real until it is total. The partly innocent are apt to be quite foolish at times. It is not until their innocence becomes a viewpoint with universal application that it becomes wisdom. Innocence or true perception means that you never misperceive and always see truly. More simply, it means that you never see what does not exist and always see what does. When you lack confidence in what someone will do, you are attesting to your belief that he is not in his right mind. This is hardly a miracle-based frame of reference. It also has the disastrous effect of denying the power of the miracle. The miracle perceives everything as it is. If nothing but the truth exists, right-minded seeing cannot see anything but perfection. I have said, literally I have said that only what God creates or what you create with the same will has any real existence. This then is all the innocent can see. They do not suffer from distorted perception. You are afraid of God's will because you have used your own mind, which he created in the likeness of God's own, which God created in the likeness of God's own, to miscreate. The mind can miscreate only when it believes it is not free. An imprisoned mind is not free because it is possessed or held back by itself. It is therefore limited, and the will is not free to assert itself. To be one is to be of one mind or will. When the will of the sonship and the father, mother are one, their perfect accord is heaven. Nothing can prevail against a daughter of God who commends her spirit into the hands of her mother. By doing this, the mind awakens from its sleep and remembers its creator. All sense of separation disappears. The daughter of God is part of the Holy Trinity, but the Trinity itself is one. There is no confusion within its levels because they are of one mind and one will. This single purpose creates perfect integration and establishes the peace of God. Yet, this vision can be perceived only by the truly innocent. Because their hearts are pure, the innocent defend true perception instead of defending themselves against it. Understanding the lesson of the atonement, they are without the wish to attack, and therefore they see truly. This is what the Bible means when it says, "When he shall appear, or be perceived, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is." The way to correct distortions is to withdraw your faith in them and invest it only in what is true. You cannot make untruth true. If you are willing to accept what is true in everything you perceive, you let it be true for you. Truth overcomes all error, and those who live in error and emptiness can never find lasting solace. If you perceive truly, you are canceling out misperceptions in yourself and in others simultaneously. Because you see them as they are, you offer them your acceptance of their truth, so they can accept it for themselves. This is the healing that the miracle induces. So we're again brought to this whole, to the concept of no compromise between everything and nothing. We either commit to one or the other. And by saying, well, I'm almost there, is saying, I'm not there. I'm not here. To say I almost understand it means we don't understand it. Say I'm almost feeling love is saying I'm not feeling love. And we were introduced, well, I'm not sure if we talked about innocence before. Is innocence familiar, Karen, in your mind?
It's hard for me to keep straight where I went ahead and what came before, honestly. Shabana, do you recall if we've touched on innocence yet in these first couple chapters?
I think she's shaking her head. You're on mute, Shabana, but I think you're saying no.
No, I am saying no, but the only thing that I found is today I opened at random and I came to lesson number 129, and that talks about innocence. So that's all I know about it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So innocence is one of these concepts that's touched upon throughout the text. Hello, Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
We're talking about innocence here, Kathy. We just read through this section, 3:2, and innocence is only real when it's total. And we're told that being partly innocent, we're apt to be quite foolish. But really, what innocence means, if we kind of inspect it a bit more fully, it means true perception, to be able to see things as they are at all times. I'm wondering if anybody has any thoughts on innocence, feel free to chime in.
Well, I was taken by number 4 there in the first paragraph. It is not until their innocence becomes a viewpoint with universal application that it becomes wisdom. And so universal application, that's pretty easy to comprehend, meaning it's an application in every instance. So the viewpoint, right? The viewpoint of innocence is required, I guess you'd say, in every application. No circumstances where you could say, oh, well, that doesn't require the innocent viewpoint or the right-minded thinking, because this circumstance, is, and you judge it to be something or other. But when you say universal application, this is a viewpoint with a universal application. That's across the board. That's everything.
Yes. I mean, that just goes back to the real, I don't know if it's a more fundamental, but the same concept that there only is one moment, there's only one state of being, there's only one response, there's only one, there's only one, it's not a problem, but there's only one solution. There's only one truth, I guess,
There's only one correction.
Yes. Only one healing.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to share something that came to mind when I read this.
Sure.
Thank you. In India, in the late 30s or early 40s, Louis Mountbatten, the Viceroy of India, was walking with some officers up a hill, and suddenly he was confronted with a hostile group of demonstrators. They were furious with the British, and he was the boss. And suddenly he waved and greeted them with great joy. And every one of them was so disarmed.
Awesome. Yeah.
Like he could have been murdered on the spot.
Yeah, but he greeted at the perceived enemy. Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Who knows what sort of? I'm sure even all of his followers were thinking, "What the heck?" You know.
Yeah.
I'd say that's
Legendary example of exactly what we read. And, I mean, my son always tells me that, one of his favorite artists said, Agnes Martin, I don't know if you've heard of her, but she said, "You're warned never to sin against innocence."
never to send against.
You're warned never or not to sin against innocence.
Oh, okay.
That long before this, people knew it
Sure.
intuitively,
Of course.
but now it's going out.
Yes. Well, now we have this generation's interpretation of the truth that's always been. Yeah. And thank you for sharing that story. I'd like to share a dream that I had that this week that relates to this. That's just so fitting. I was in a car in my high school parking lot. It doesn't matter if I was in a parking lot in my car, and in the passenger seat on the floor was my cat, and she was recovering from something. She was I don't know, just sitting. Kathy, thank you for joining us on stream. So my cat was sitting on the floor in the passenger seat, recovering from something. And a little girl came walking by and saw and looked in, and she said, "Oh, is your cat okay?" Or something. I said, "Yeah, she's recovering." And this little girl, opened the door, came in, sat in. I didn't, a stranger, sat in the car, and she had these like shorts on. She took off her shorts and put them on the cat as a warmth, and just sat there, short without pants on in my car. So I'm here with this little girl without pants on in the car, and that is total innocence, because I knew what she was doing. She's helping my cat, and I'm sitting there. This is awesome. There's perfection. Me, I demonstrated the partial innocence, because I was like, "Well, that's cool. This is a trusting situation." Some gentleman came by and looked in, and he's like, and he started to question me why I'm with a little girl without shorts on in the car. And I lost, rather than just say what happened, I started getting defensive, because I was like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to be here like this." So I started to act almost partially innocent, and therefore foolish. If I were to maintain the complete innocence of that little girl, then that's the perfection, where it's like, being guided to do something and just knowing that it's right, and not worrying about what people are thinking, not worrying about criticism or strange misperceptions, to just be at truth, and then to just come from that place of truth, and not worry about, if we're coming from truth, we're coming from spirit. This is what spirit is the truth of spirit. What do we have to worry about? Why are we concerned about somebody else's perceptions? So yeah, I thought it was a fitting dream. So thanks for entertaining.
Innocence, the universal application, no circumstance where innocent wouldn't be, I keep saying required, but that's not really what I mean, warranted, innocence is always the correct response.
Yeah. It's like just fitting, Yeah.
Kidding. Kidding.
Hello, Liz. Just FYI, by default, everyone comes in on mute and without video. So if you'd like to be on screen or to say something, just unmute yourself and chime in. We're all welcome to discuss. So we're talking, I'm going to put this link again in the chat. We're on chapter 3, section 2. And Liz, I believe we had a discussion earlier today. So Liz is joining us for round 2. We had a discussion at my mother's center. My mother has a spiritual center. We had a Course in Miracles discussion. So we're up to the third paragraph. When you lack confidence in what someone will do, you are attesting to your belief that he is not in his right mind. I know we have some thoughts on that. I know we've all been in a place where, or in a state of mind where we're questioning if somebody else is going to do something or is capable of doing something, and lacking confidence in what someone will do. But really thinking about this is just a judgment of ourselves. How can we make that judgment that's coming from within ourselves to say, this person is not, I don't have confidence this person will do something? That started from within ourselves.
It's kind of interesting because even if, in our day-to-day life, even if it's very obvious that somebody didn't do something that they were expected to do or you needed them to do or that type of thing, it's still, we don't have the ability to see the bigger picture. So we might say that person's not in their right mind, and the way we would say it is through our judgment. But really, we don't know what that person was doing or why. So it's trusting, right?
That's right. Now, I'm glad you say it that way, because it's like, maybe we have some idea of what needs to be done. And it's always rooted in doing, But like we're told, if nothing but the truth exists, right-minded seeing, innocent perceiving, cannot see anything but perfection. So even if something doesn't turn out as we had expected, we see the perfection in that.
And didn't we just see that at work the other day, when because the workbook link had been sent out, the correct link hadn't been sent out and it was noticed. It's like, oh, well, let's do an email, let's send it out. And because we did that, we were able to, capture that thing which needed to be captured later on to correct a problem we didn't even know existed.
Exactly.
So it's like initially there might have been judgment like, well, why'd that go out incorrectly, or around HT we don't really point fingers hardly at all, but in day-to-day life fingers get pointed. But is there any such thing as a mistake or something gone wrong? I don't know anymore.
Well, maybe that, that's curious. I'd like to chat about this. Is there a difference between the two? You said mistake or something gone wrong. I think there's never something gone wrong. But what about mistakes?
Well, that's a judgment call.
It is, and maybe it's a level. It's an order of levels here. Maybe a bodily mistake. There's no mistake in the kingdom of God, for instance. But can there be a mistake? Like where do mistakes exist? What level?
Well,
bodily level, maybe.
Well, what would you give as an example of a mistake?
So we're told that, for instance, sin is defined as a mistake to be corrected rather than an evil to be punished. So perhaps if we're in a situation that calls for love and we don't provide the love, it's a mistake in that we had an opportunity to be at love, to experience that blessing that we needed, and we didn't provide it.
Can we tease the word mistake apart for a second? So we missed the opportunity. We miss the opportunity to take the opportunity.
I like
I love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Miss.
And isn't its actual meaning is miss the mark? It's because it's from archery, from what my, because I always had an issue with mistake or the sin. And it was explained to me missing the mark, which I thought really changed my whole perspective of how I look at it, or try to.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And it's like, what, you know?
Well, I see it as the bullseye, right? You're shooting for the center, trying to do it perfect. But I'm listening to all of you. Today I was in a group 12-step program, and someone was sitting next to me. This just makes me think of what someone could say was a mistake. And this woman sat next to me quietly while we're not supposed to speak and asked me, the blinds were bothering her and the light was in her eyes and it was uncomfortable. She goes, "You think it would be rude if I just adjust those?" And for me, it was, for me, it's no problem. I have no idea. Just her doing that caused a complete stream of angst in the biggest way. So she needed it for the light. It triggered somebody else who had issues, who went into a big spin because she has claustrophobic issues from her upbringing. And the whole energy in that room changed big time. So I could immediately go, "Oh my God, it's my fault." She asked me, and I just said, "I don't see it as a problem." And I'm sitting in front of something that says how we can't control, cure, whatever, and or cause. But the whole dynamic, the gift in the whole thing was that it was brought up the idea of like the elephant in the room, how we were able to discuss what really felt as a mistake or uncomfortable or whatever, or people were being themselves in that one moment. And I want to bring this all together, but it actually, by being human and living and doing our best, but being allowed to show that if we call it mistakes, but being gentle and kind and understanding, that's how we learn and grow through. So it's through, if a mistake offers you an opportunity to sit back and look at something at a different, or like you were saying, Karen, how what you may call a mistake, somebody else sees it differently, because we all have our own filters. But by us talking about it, just by listening to you and sharing, is continually opening us up more and more to the human component, that there can't be a mistake. It's always offering an opportunity to learn or grow.
That makes sense. I would say it's not a human component as much as just a truth component. You know, it's a greater, truth is greater than human, you know? Like humans are a form, but the truth is the content behind the form. So if our identity is rooted in human, then we better expand human to include all life,
Right.
not just the physical form of it. So the chair is human, you know, this chat room is human, because who we are is much greater than human, you know. To associate with anything less than God is a limiting identity, and that's why we're actually taken to the Holy Trinity. And and by the way, hello Lorraine. I'll say this again. By default, you're in muted and without a camera. But if you'd like to chime in, feel free to unmute or start your video. But we're
say one thing, Tim. I'm sorry, just to finish where I was going. I think it's back to the innocence, and in that room, you could feel how anxious everyone was because they were afraid of speaking up to make a mistake. Was it a mistake to express, what was just going on in that room because of what someone may call was a mistake. But anyway, it's interesting. And coming back to the love component, and the innocence of no one did anything wrong. And yet it created the whole shift in that room to a really very uncomfortable. And then we took it back into the doing the work full circle.
Yeah. A couple of things. You phrase it very nicely in the sense you see a mistake as something that leads to an opportunity for healing, really.
Right.
But it's like event, mistake, healing. We don't even need to even just get this mistake, event, healing. There's no mistake. It's just opportunity for healing.
Correct.
We could label
Absolutely.
it mistake,
Right.
but not necessarily. Is it a mistake if it's healing? Opportunity to grow.
Correct. Totally.
And
And that's the gift that we give one another by sharing and expressing.
mhm.
Well, you know what Webster says? Merriam-Webster Collegiate Dictionary says about mistake as a noun. It says, a wrong action or statement proceeding from faulty judgment. Faulty judgment.
Judgment.
So
Any judgment.
Period. Yeah. Judgment.
all judgment is faulty. That's why I'm kind of smiling at it. Yeah.
So think about that. Just the mistake. The concept of a mistake is a mistake.
Yeah. It's like a word. It's like words are symbols of symbols, right? It's like you have to go back again.
And for me, in my life pattern of the fear of making a mistake is a surety I'm going to make one, because, or if what we call, I'm not going to be as authentic. So that fear component, and again, this is conditioning, and which I know it's a process till the day I die, but
You'll be waiting many days then, Kathy.
well, no, I'm not going to. No, I'm not. But it just watching and observing the misunderstanding and the power of the misunderstanding of that judgment and mistake then allows people that freedom to really be themselves. And if when we're really back to ourselves, we're back to that innocent child that I believe we were born and conditioned and to live all these experiences to bring us back home to that innocent child for everybody.
I know Karen has something to say about mistakes.
Who does? Karen?
Yes.
Well,
The fear of mistakes, the fear of anything less than perfection.
oh, yeah, I don't really feel like talking about that. But what I was just thinking is, if there is a mistake, if there is such a thing as a mistake, there would just be one mistake, wouldn't there? And that would be thinking that there is a separation, this whole separated world that we make up, that we continually make up. Because that is, it's not accurate, it's not correct, it doesn't really exist in absolute terms. So would that be considered a mistake? A mistake in thinking? I guess, in other words, what's the difference between wrong thinking and mistaken thinking, right?
So, well, A Course in Miracles uses the term right-mindedness and wrong-mindedness. And I think it's synonymous with mistaken-mindedness. And you're right in the sense that there's one, if there is mistake, there's one. It doesn't make it real, but it's the mistake, the belief. You know what maybe it is? It's belief in something that is not. I think that's a mistake. When we put our belief in illusion, it's just a mistake. If somebody is believing in a limited self. It's a mistake. It's not something to be punished. They're not being punished for it. It's just a mistake to be corrected. It's putting blinders on to truth, or blocking out the sun, saying the sun is not shining when it is. And when we say there's one mistake, there's all these mistakes and illusions are rooted in one. It can be boiled down to a single thing, and that's the belief in separation. But what is that? Separation. If some of these concepts like Holy Spirit, Son of God, Daughter of God, they're useful tools, but we have to identify with our capital I identity, my capital I identity. Each of us can say, I am everything, because that's our identity. Anything less than that, and like we're told, there's no compromise between everything and nothing. If we're not identifying with everything, we're not almost there, we're not 50% of everything, we're identifying with nothing. So any concept of self that's less than full, less than everything, meaning claiming our identity as God, as everything we see, everything we experience is me. That's our identity. When body dies, this body, fine, I still am. I am. And it's not a mind, it's not a separate mind controlling this body, controlling other bodies. There's one mind, one identity. That's who we are. That's who I am. Because there's one of us. There's one of me. So, and so that is everything. To think anything less than that is the mistake. Is limiting myself.
I was just reading paragraph 4, about the mind miscreating and an imprisoned mind not being free because it's possessed or held back by itself. It's possessed or held back by this notion of separation.
Yes.
I think
That
freedom,
mistake, that one
freedom.
mistake.
I'm sorry. When I was reading the reading today, it keeps coming up of freedom and the powerlessness of it's taking our power back, and the freedom of choice to look at everything in a whole different.
I'd like to just
Freedom.
delete "our" just for fun and just say taking power back. And again, paragraph 4, to be one is to be of one mind or will. When the will of the sonship and the Father are one, when the will of the childrenship and the Father, Mother, God are one, their perfect accord is heaven.
Yes.
Right? Heaven, freedom, love, perfection.
There's no difference, and there's no separation in one, and it's there's no discrepancy there. When the will of the sonship, when the creation and creator are one, their perfect accord is heaven. Meaning, when we recognize our will and that of our creator is the same, we identify with creator and creation. It's the same. It's no less than. It's also no greater than. That is heaven. That is heaven. This is heaven.
And how do we do that? We do that by forgiveness. How do we, become that one mind? We do that through forgiveness, right? That whole conversation about atonement. And this paragraph 3, where it says, it also has the disaster effect of denying the power of the miracle. It was like, whoa, when you lack confidence in what someone will do, when you're living in this separated world and you're making judgments and you think there's a mistake, you're lacking confidence in what someone will do or what they did, and you're judging it as a mistake or some other word. It says it has a disastrous effect. That's strong language of denying the power of the miracle. Whoa, you know, it just happens automatically.
It's true. You know, in the kingdom, there's no such thing as disastrous. Is it an extension or failing or neglecting to see the extension? But in the physical world, there is destruction. It literally is destructive. It's not just meaningless. It's destructive.
It's a funny thing how nothing can be destructive, but
The concept of nothing somehow is given substance by our focusing upon it.
yep. It's this world we're choosing to live in unless we choose differently.
But think about our language. I'd like to just bring up how deeply entrenched this mistake is in our generation, in this generation. I am the first person. The first person is me, right? We all say, what is the first person? I am the first person. The first person. That's a strong statement. I am the first person. And how many people are there? There's one, right? So that I am, yes. Now, the second person is you. Now, what is you? How do we define you? I've thought about this, and it doesn't make any sense. You is the recipient of a dialogue, maybe the recipient of communication. Regardless, it implies a separation.
Yeah, you is that which isn't I.
But also, there's a distinction between you and that which is neither me nor you. He, she is.
What
So
now?
the third person is neither me nor you.
Oh, she, him.
Something else. So what, like, now think about it. Typically, traditionally, God is referred to in the third person, meaning God is neither here nor there, somewhere else. Like, you are at least there, and I can speak with you. I am here, you're there. Where is God? Somewhere else. That's how we structure our language. God, yes, this is what God, he will do. It's twice removed from ourself. So we've twice removed ourselves from everything. Really, it's only once removed. You can't remove yourself. It's just, and this structure, we know this. We're so much more intelligent than we think. We have this infinite intelligence that's directing ourself. And we know, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, mostly subconsciously, because typically we're not thinking about these things in everyday dialogue. When we say, yeah, God will help me out, in the sense that she, they'll help me out. We're saying, God, who is me, who is within, no, not even within, not even the recipient of whom I'm saying this. Something else, that's going to help me out. And then we get distraught when it doesn't happen because we affirmed it. All of these were told in A Course in Miracles, a desire, a wish that comes from ego is not a desire at all. It's just a denial in the form of a request. When we request something from the ego, it's not a request. It's a denial in the form of a request. We're asking for something that we know we're not going to get. In other words, we're asking for something that we think is going to bring us joy, but it doesn't. So we're denying ourselves in that statement by saying, "This is yes, this is the ego that I want to be. This is the set of the list of attributes, the list of finite attributes That's what I want to be. That's what's going to bring me happiness. That's just a denial. That's a denial of happiness in the form of a request. And what happens? We get these things and it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe I need to add a few more things to the list.
Did you say a minute ago that you make that we make that request to ego? Did I hear you say that?
Make it to ego. I'm not sure if it's to ego, but it stems from ego, an ego request.
Oh, ego. Oh, I see. I heard that wrong. Okay.
Any request that stems from ego, from limited, finite.
Well, it stems from thinking that we need something or want something or something should be changed or
Exactly.
different than it is.
Rooted in lack, rooted in ego, finite. Finite is not infinite, meaning it's lacking love, and you can't be you can't be lacking in joy and fully in love. Like that doesn't make sense. You're either fully in joy and love, in truth, everything, or not. You can't say like, well, I'd like this part of the ego and the rest I'll be spirit. That's a denial in the form of a request.
It goes back to being the child. Again, the innocence of a child doesn't know all the separations, and they just come through the purity of their being until conditioning, right? So as I listen to you, I am listening to all of you. It's undoing the conditioning. It's the trust. Like when we spend time together and we're here for a reason because we, in one way, know this. It's almost for me like, oops, they take me away. I don't know. Can you still hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh, it's something going on here in my area.
Kathy, I'd like to just interject for a moment here.
Sure.
I would like to try something here.
Go for it.
And continue, please, after I say this. But like, for instance, let's see how this plays out. I would like to just use the first person. Always. I meaning all these all perspective to just use first person. So in other words, Kathy's saying, I'm listening to myself here because if we were now, maybe we could reference you and he just to talk about it. Like if I am to say, I'm listening to you all talk, it's still implying that the knowingness that's resulting from the conversation is stemming from outward, where really Kathy is listening. Kathy, I'm listening to myself talk because all this knowing is already here and the talking is just a perception that stems from inward and I am doing the work. It's not from outside of myself. So, and it's a knowing that's already here.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Well, I think so. I am learning as I speak. Anything I say is meant for me. If that makes sense.
Yes.
Right.
This is true.
And always in the hope that maybe it's helping someone else. Okay.
Well,
that I will admit.
Who is me?
Right.
Who is me? That statement helps me.
Right.
Helps.
Right.
All of these. Me is, even though it seems like it's many, it's one.
Which comes back to the trust. And obviously the repetitiveness of it, I will say from the experience I have lived, it's the gift of supporting each eyes of us. I don't know how to say that. Get back on the support, keeping as I walk out that door and am living life with the other eyes that show up before me, to stay in the trust of living this.
That's
You
right.
know, and not falling back in the fear and losing it and I go, I get back Sunday, 4 o'clock. Okay, help keep me back on. But if any of that makes any sense.
You always make sense, Kathleen.
So, I don't know. You're sweet to say that, but
I grok it. I get it.
maybe you guys are so beyond. I mean, I listen
No,
to
you're
you
more
and
you're more articulate than you give yourself credit for, is what I think. I hear what you're saying.
I'm listening.
I think I'm just very compelled for myself. And myself, what is that? Myself, my identity, my capital I identity. Now, oh, this is something I haven't brought up yet, and I love this. I have a physics background, so I enjoy math, and it's basic math. Now, if anyone here is familiar with imaginary numbers, the concept of imaginary numbers, it's kind of like like when you square a number, 2 squared is 4. 3 squared is 9, is 3 times 3. The square root is the opposite of that. So the square root of 9 is 3. But negative numbers, if we think about negative numbers, what's the square root of -1? You can't multiply something by itself to get a negative number. So there's this concept called imaginary numbers, which it's defined, it's little I, is defined as the square root of -1. And it's just a mathematical construct. It's a constant, so to speak. Now, it's called an imaginary number, and it's represented by lowercase I. Now, so ego is lowercase I. When I talk about, oh, well, this is what I did today, and this is where I'm going. That's ego, that's lowercase I, imaginary. Imaginary. It's just a construct. It's just a fabrication of mind, just from pure thought. Uppercase I, identity. I am here. That is who I am. Everything. I am everything I see. That's identity. So there's this distinction. There is everything is uppercase I, and lowercase I is the limited self, is the history, and this is my profile and my photo and all this. This is what I look like, and this is how I'm limited. That's another form of saying this is how I choose to limit myself by identifying. There's nothing wrong with just presenting these things and having fun with it, but identifying with it is the limitation. And it seems subtle, but it's everything. When our identity is the root, is the core of everything that we choose to experience, how we choose to perceive each moment, where we're drawn, what we're called to do and what we choose to follow. What guide we choose to listen to. Do we choose to listen to the lowercase imaginary I, or the uppercase I, full everything self?
I would say the little I brought me here, or the identifying with the little I. Help me there. Experiencing living in that I is what is the little I is bringing me back to that big I.
Well,
I mean,
that
makes sense.
I must say, the big I brought you here, certainly. The little I made you believe that you were lacking in doing so. that you were missing some part of that I was missing some part of myself. This is Kathy thinking. I was missing some part of myself, and so I thought I needed to find it here, where really it's here. Little I was convincing you other words.
Right. I didn't express it.
Big I is the guide that brings here. Certainly, little I doesn't do anything constructive.
I think what I meant was the experience of the little I and the pain and suffering that brings awakens me to the big I think is what I was.
Separates you from
pain.
Separates from the big I.
Okay, gotcha.
It doesn't bring you to the big I. Definitely not. The ego wants to run away from the big I. The last thing ego wants, and this is giving ego, little I, too much power. The last thing that our mistaken mindset wants is to be exposed for the truth that it's nothing. It's imaginary.
Right.
Once we know that, then it's, oh,
Right.
you know, oh, that's just a mistake. Okay, that's it. There's no, it's not an evil to be punished. There's no repercussion. It's just nothing. All right. Atonement. That's what atonement was for.
Tim, could I say something? Because, sorry, because it's almost 2:00 here in Italy, and I'm afraid I'm not going to last much longer in this meeting, and I don't want to rudely disappear. But I wanted to say, firstly, it's an absolute pleasure to meet you and to join this meeting. But I have to sort of have a bit of disclosure, which is that one, I come from 25 years in a sort of therapeutic model, sort of, you know, in some form of training. I started out in Course in Miracles, but also I have a background. I have sort of, I sort of come from a background, a bit of PTSD. So for me, number one, I don't like speaking to people unless I know the sort of format. So I joined ACIM, and yet, to be honest, unless I face-to-face met people in the flesh, or I know the construct, it kind of, it sort of, it doesn't work for me. So I feel ever so rude because I'm coming in 10 to 2, sort of, you know, half sort of, you know, sort of a little on my last round of the day. And I also don't really know what these meetings are. I know what Course in Miracles is, and I've worked with it for a number of years, though I have, you know, need to come back to it more fully. But I'm not really sure the format. And if I'm entirely honest, I'm not even sure of the format on Facebook, because it's embarrassing to say, but I'm not even sure of how they link people up. And I certainly think that it's triggered me because I'm kind of, I've been doing this work a long time. So I'd like to sort of know you know, I like to go in, and if I'm working with people, I like to let them know how it is. So I just wanted to say, well, I'm so grateful for you to invite me to this, but I'm afraid I'm flagging. And I also don't think the format works for me, because until I know exactly what I'm involved with, I feel ever so uncomfortable. So I wanted to just give you full disclosure. I absolutely love any discourse around ACIM, but, you know, I think that I was unclear because I'm not here to sort of be mentored by someone. I'm not involved. I don't like to get involved with anything where people are mentoring others, because I come from a background of believing that if someone thinks they're the teacher, for me, that they're not the teacher at all, you know, because a realized being doesn't need a teacher, and we're all realized beings. So effectively, I don't know, really, I feel ever so grateful and frankly, you know, it's been amazing sort of connecting with you and also joining this group, but I think I haven't done my homework. And just thank you for hearing me out. But I shouldn't come to this meeting tired and not knowing really what the format is. So just thank you for letting me listen in. And I do apologize for my demeanor, but I'm kind of, you know, I'm overworked, and I'm very keen to join ACIM, but it must happen organically. So I think I've made some error, and I do apologize for that.
That's okay.
Thank you for hearing me out.
Yes. We tend to, you know, we just leave it to the teacher, our teacher, or really unteacher, to bring up what we need to discuss, and it's very, I'd say, open to spirit format, where we're just going a section at a time. So we're in chapter 3, section 2. That's for this discussion in particular. And we just take a section at a time and see what comes up, because we can, the goal of these is to really take our own, to help our own study of A Course in Miracles. And we're all teachers here. A few weeks ago, we read the first section of A Manual for Teachers, which essentially gave us all some insight as to who a teacher is and who a student is, and how traditionally the roles are flipped in this generation, where there's a teacher at the front of the room that knows everything, and the students are fortunate enough to be in the teacher's presence. But really, really, A Course in Miracles shows us that that's just a mistake. And we're all teachers. And so in order for us, and really the point of teaching is to learn. In order for us to learn something, we must teach it. So I just organize this and choose, and I just, I see myself as a facilitator of these discussions. And just because I believe I've read through this more than most, at least, I don't know. I read through this all the time, so I'm comfortable with I have a lot to discuss with the Course in Miracles. I'll put it that way. But this is group discussion. This is flat out discussion. There's no teacher. This is my Zoom room, so I guess this is my hangout place. But thank you for joining us. And
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
If you don't want to come back, then that is perfectly fine. But we're all welcome here, and we're welcome to just bring our own experience, because I think sharing these teachings in terms of our experience helps us all to understand it a bit better. And I love to discuss some of the theory, and there's only so much that can be discussed kind of internally,
Thank you, Ted.
I find that what I've experienced is unconditional love. So it's exposing whatever the chatty mind might be saying or what have you. For me, A Course in Miracles, I've read it a few times, and obviously each time you gain more. But it can be a little heady. It can be, or not, but it's being allowed to express whatever confusion or just expressing, and then being allowed to hear you help, the program or the group has helped to see ourselves in a unconditional, just in a layer of love. And that for me is the healing that is being offered by being myself through the process of learning the program, the course.
So, by the way, Kathy, well, you said it could be a bit heady. Have you ever come across or read A Course of Love?
No.
That maybe one of which to take a note. There's a book that was published in, I believe 2004, called A Course of Love. And I'd say it's an extension of A Course in Miracles, rooted in heart. And it's a beautiful text.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much for saying that. I just wanted to, Tim, say thank you. I actually unschool my two children. They're 14 and 16. And I followed a lot of Indian mythology, which ties, spirituality across the board, links in seamlessly, usually, in my humble opinion. And my children, they say that you can incarnate, you if you're open to it, the soul that comes through you will not be, can be anything, is often can be way more developed than you are, which is what I have. I have two souls that are way more developed than me. We unschool. There's no, there's no authority. They teach me often more than I can teach them, which is very challenging for ego. It's a beautiful process of having your ego soldered down daily. And so I'm opening to that process, that I trust what I hear in people. I trust life experience as well. I mean, it's okay reading books and knowing the material, but you can hear in someone's voice, you can hear, you can see, you can feel with their energy what they've experienced and lived. So somebody can say nothing and crystallize and change the energy around them and enlighten people by their presence, and other people can know everything. And yet you can hear that they haven't lived what they know. So I sort of, I'm working with a lot of humility. I just lost 2 dads in the last year. And, I'm also Buddhist. I'm across the board. Eclectic faith system. And my father died, was in a coma, and I was there with family who don't speak to me anymore. And he passed through what his skin went from grey to pink, which in the Buddhist story means, something happened. I lived that, through me. It moved through me. I can't explain it. That's the second time that's happened to me. And I'm just looking for truth like everyone. But I'm just very grateful for this space. I think my resistance is that I'm being opened more and more, and I have to be careful to honor my energy, because I have come across people who think they can teach. And it's not in my interest to allow people to think, to take energy that way. I've had that experience, and I won't let that happen anymore, because I'm trying to be more humble. It's not by speaking that you can convey, actually. It's, for me, it's by your presence. It's beyond words, which is why I'm wary of talk. But I'm also, that's my background. I've come from learning that lesson. So thank you. I will be quiet now, but I'm very grateful. And if it's okay, I'd love to listen more. And I'm very grateful to everybody's sharing, and Tim, to your connection with you thus far. So thank you.
Thank
so
you,
much.
Lorraine, for your sharing. Thank you very much. Thank I.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, thank you, Lorraine. And I must make it abundantly clear that when we collectively use the first person here, at least I would like for us to at least catch it, or make a note. Who am I? Which I am I using here? If let's assume that when I say I am, then that's myself. That is myself. All the collective, my collective self. And we can talk about the imaginary I by referencing imaginary I. So imaginary I, Lorraine, imaginary self, the ego as a teacher. The goal of ego as teacher is to make the student reliant on the ego. The goal of spirit as teacher is to make itself unnecessary. So that's I'd say, my collective role as teachers are to make myself unnecessary in all that we come across. And I think the more we all discuss this, the more we're stepping into that role in our life, in my life, to the more this becomes a part of my experience, the more I'm called to share it, the more I am called to make myself unnecessary. Sense. And it's not at all coming from a place of like imaginary power. Getting back to power, reclaiming power. It was said before. Let's reclaim power. Any place we put our attention, anything we focus on, we're giving power. So if we just think about a statement, like a seemingly simple statement, that person has a lot of power. Yes, because we just gave it to them. All of our power is within ourselves, and we can choose to give our power away to outside of ourselves unequally. This has more power than this, but it's all one power. So powerful is just the recognition that this power is within and without, and we're just a part of this power, and to see it everywhere. So power is everything that we see. It's like a love. There's just everywhere we look, that's power, that's love, it's joy.
As
But
soon as we put a pronoun on it, which is why I was kind of jokingly, but not, took out your OUR earlier.
Mhm.
If we saw somebody who seemed to have a lot of power, if we were to watch how we speak about it and say, that is power, and just recognize that there's power and not give it to anybody, because when we give it to somebody or claim it as mine, that's like this whole belonging thing, which is it's mine, not yours. And that's just separation again. But if we just say, if we do, that's power. that's power, and recognize that there is power, if that's the word we're using.
refinement, that is outside of ourselves. This is power, and this can be, and it's, see, it's like I'm looking at the chair now. We can say that chair is power, or more truthfully, more fundamentally, this is power. This is power, and it's the connection we have with the chair. It's how we're using
Yeah.
the chair. This is power.
Good refinement. Yeah.
This shared experience. This is power. This is love. This shared experience that's here. That's here. That's not outside self. Here. This is love. This is joy.
Isn't there that little, like, what is it, a psychological little trick or something, that you can't recognize something out there in the external world that isn't something in you? Like, you just wouldn't even recognize it. So it is correct to say this is power, because if we recognize power and it looks like it's out there, it isn't. Well, the whole external world is the projection of in here anyway. So, well, that's a conversation.
What I'm feeling listening to you is the power of love, which expands, soft and kind and not forceful, and fear restricts. So it's that soft expansion, the power of love. I had read a book way back, Power versus Force, by, what is it, David Hawkins or Steve, regardless. But the big difference.
Absolutely.
And I choose power. But I've given in my past a lot of mine away. And I'm here, to accept that power, to understand it, but that we all have it, and support that and share that.
And does fear even have power? Would we even give fear that attribute?
Right. It's just, yeah, I just see it as something that shrinks and takes that, maybe that's fear and lack, join hands or what have you, and power expands. The love.
Fear is a limitation.
Mm-hmm.
I must say, now, I know myself understands when I use the first person here. I know myself as Kathy. I feel such a shift in myself as Kathy here now from previous sessions, and I feel power. I feel this power because it's being shared and extended. And I just have to acknowledge that the presence, my presence as Kathy is powerful, is extending that power, empowering. And so this is appreciation. It's appreciation. Here.
This Kathy feels the love.
And
I mean that. I mean that. I really mean that. I feel that. And I share that.
I know it because love is something that is shared and there's not a single end to it. It's the connection that's formed. And clearly there's one self, but it's like that's what this is love. It's I know it. And it's the room, this web, it's the web among ourselves in this room. And what is this room really? Everything. This is love, and I know what Kathy means. I know what myself as Kathy means. Because it's not it's never a one-sided thing. It's a collective thing, so.
I love you too.
I love Shabana.
I love myself as Shabana too, especially when immediately going back on mute after a punchline.
Shabana does do that. That's good.
Boy, so I mean, it's a beautiful thing here now.
I just like to add, sorry to interrupt. Well, no, I'm not sorry to interrupt. I just want to say that I love Lorraine Rose too.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Thank you. I do feel that love. Thank you very much. Tim, you're not gonna, you're gonna find out soon that why I shouldn't be talking at 2 a.m. But I'm gonna say, do you know what I mean when I say family enmeshment? Do you know that term?
No.
Okay, so in enmeshed families, parents live vicariously through the children, and they use control tactics that are subversive. And they say, unfortunately, it mirrors what you just said, though I know you do not mean it in this way. It sounds the same. So I'm just aware of that and bringing it up. So what a parent will do is say subversive things, never overt, but in suggesting that the child is an extension of themselves. It's incredibly unhealthy, and it's the reason why control patterns destruct families in these. But what it means is that, you can never be, you're an individualized spirit, soul, individualized. So you can never, we're individualized for a good reason. Because of the intelligence, obviously, of the process of how life operates. But when you say it like that, I'm just aware that it sounds like enmeshment, though I know it's not. But I'm just saying that because of my background, again, in therapy, and knowing that. So I'm just aware that that's how anybody with my kind of education would view it, though it's not the case. Do you know what I mean? If you say, I as that person, that is enmeshment. So I'm just saying that to you to give you that info, though I'm do apologize, because I know that you are a million miles away from being an enmesher. That's why they don't let therapists into calls like this. But listen, I do give you all love back, and I apologize if I've spoken out of turn.
Not at all.
That is why myself as Lorraine appreciates Lorraine being here. Okay? Because this is anything relating to I love studying anything that further understands, and this is Tim Noah speaking. Tim Noah enjoys learning anything that could better strengthen understanding of A Course in Miracles. So if I'm familiar with this enmeshing, awesome. But I will say that enmeshing, I believe I'm saying that correctly, is the separated self it's a selective identity, meaning I am living through my children, but not the guy that's living on the sidewalk over there. There's a difference between I am myself and maybe I'm my child, and that's called enmeshing. But assuming an identity of all of everything and using the first person with that, I'd say that's where it's not enmeshing as much as identifying.
Yes, yeah. But I suppose what it is that so the term used while we're individuated is always going to bring up alarm bells because it's so easily abused, even if you don't know that you're abusing it, if it's used, because you can't effectively be somebody else when you're incarnate. You can, if you're disembodied, then it's a different story, but you can't be. So of course it's always going to end up.
According to whom?
Well, that's you. When you're incarnate for a reason, to live in your own path of discovery, your own path. That's why I really subscribe to people being their own guru, their own teacher, their own leader. And if they are codependent, they will tend to ask other people for advice on how to live. But if they're individualized and if they're evolved, then they don't need to ask other people. They know their own truth, and they only ask for it to be mirrored back. So that's what I mean. But anyway, I've said enough, because I know you're not enmeshing, but I'm just telling you that that's how it sounded, though you're not.
And I will continue to say, Lorraine, that this is discussion, and all dialogue is appreciated, because all is furthering our understanding of this, of this truth. I must be vigilant for God and God's kingdom here. My identity is not an individuation in the sense of a separation from God. Individuation, taken as a separation, is the fundamental mistake. Even if we say, saying we're a body means that we're different from other bodies. I'm limited, I'm this body and I'm nothing else. Limiting ourselves. To say that I am a spirit, different from other spirits, separating us from other self. And if we're separated from other spirits, then we're separated from God. How can we be separate from another spirit if we're all in God, in eternity? So individuation may be a useful tool in communication, in communicating with these other individuations that may be abiding to an individuated identity, but it's not my identity. It's not our collective identity, because it's.
I got it. Yeah, I got it. But the only thing I'll say, Tim, is I'm going to say, and I am somebody that says, I'm somebody that has quite a lot of, well, if I say something from a deeply rooted place, I'm sure I'm not, it's not sort of a flippant I'm pretty sure of this point. When you say me as Kathy, that's a boundary violation, full stop. You're not Kathy. You can't speak for Kathy. You can speak for yourself. If you say that, you're assuming a power that you don't have. And I honestly, I'm going to be honest, I feel like I'm a little bit of a controversial type. So I really am going to sort of thank everybody again and then close my time in this meeting. But for me, I would be very careful of that energy, because it's effectively a boundary violation. And it's incorrect. You're not Kathy, so you have no idea how she feels, and so you can't speak for her. I would never let somebody say me as Lorraine. It's just a confusion. It's not to do with, it's not to do with, I hear what you're saying about separation, but effectively, if anybody said to me, Tim, me as you, Lorraine, I would really check out where they're coming from, because it's to me, it's just a confusion. It's a confusion in yourself that you can't speak as somebody else, and you're not spirit that can enter someone else's psyche and suddenly demonstrate yourself there. But listen, don't get me wrong. I have made a mistake, Tim. It's too late, and for me it's the wrong time to connect, and I don't want to connect in this way, and so it's my error. But I do wish you, I've absolutely enjoyed our connection. It's not for me, but I enjoy our connection. ACIM is always for me, but I think I have to find my area, my place. This kind of energy is just not quite for me, but I totally respect the work that you're doing. I stand by everything I just said, and I salute everybody here. And from my heart, I apologize if I've misunderstood, because I haven't had the time to get to know everyone, and that happens often for me.
Just
but
before,
thank you.
Lorraine, if you,
Yes.
Lorraine, may I just say something before you go?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I dug up the chapter that I was reading today in another one of Humanities Team's Zoom calls.
Yes.
It's called Conversations with God, and we're studying chapter 4 of Tomorrow's God. And I'm on page 42, and what I'm trying to do right here, right now, is address exactly what you brought up. And it says here that there are 4 levels of creation. The first is the subconscious. The second is the conscious. The third is the superconscious. And the fourth is the supraconscious. So when you are dealing with therapy and the terms that you've used, those are the subconscious and the conscious. And what Tim has been talking about today in terms of identifying with each of us, that is the superconscious and the supraconscious, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah. Shabana, yes, it does, but I don't deal with just those two, because it's not therapy. I'm effectively spiritual above all. I think I've just misunderstood. When anybody, as I said, if anybody says to me, crosses lines and says, as you now, or is unclear in their communication, or speaks about themselves in the third person, they're warning signs to me of some lack of integration, perhaps of a lot of knowledge that hasn't been fully integrated in life experience. That's my take. But I totally understand what you're saying, but I don't stop at therapy. I do really appreciate your reading that. I'm certainly not. Therapy stops at the psychological level. I don't stop there. That's not, but it's just the feeling I have. And I'm going to say again, I do apologize because it's all been too rushed, and this isn't the way I like to do things. I've never done this before. I've never signed up online to a mentorship program this way, and it isn't for me the way I've done it. But I really thank everybody here, and I trust there's nothing to worry about. I trust you're in Course in Miracles' hand. What can there be to worry about? I do apologize for the phonetic nature of this call, and honestly, peace and love to everybody here. I'm in grieving. I'm not myself. I'm going to say that.
May I share one thing, Lorraine?
Please do. Thank you.
Okay, since I was the one of the topic. I'm good.
Yeah.
And I understand, I think I understand how you're explaining that and the discomfort. And I see many gifts in your sharing. But for me, I just want you to know, it wasn't how I received him sharing is, it wasn't taking my power from me. I understand that part of life. I've lived it. I've gone through the PTSD, all the things you're discussing. It truly, when I say unconditional love, that's what I received in what he was sharing. And in A Course of Miracles, saying how we are one.
Thank
And
you.
so that is where I know that, Tim, correct me, where I was receiving it from.
I got it.
Helping us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. But Kathy, had I heard you say that me operating as Tim, I probably would have felt more comfortable to hear it coming from all angles. And it's just, again, it's probably premature. I find communication a little, I don't know anybody here, and I can do online training. I can work with people online, but sometimes, if I don't get free flowing, straight up communication, I find it difficult it's kind of, yeah, I know that this isn't quite the right time for one thing, the mentorship program wasn't clear about who's mentoring, who's not. It doesn't matter, but I need a lot more upfront communication for me to feel comfortable. But this meeting is wonderful. And I thank you.
And I just want to add one thing, because listening to you and what you shared about not speaking, and I understand if in the perfection, if I was perfect, if I was perfectly aligned and, understood the course perfectly, I guess none of us would be speaking. But for me, sharing what I'm feeling or how I express, when it's attached to fear, then I really, the gift of us being able to share and express what's coming through is the gift of the healing. If I was going to go in fear for my words, like I'm being helped hearing myself, I guess, of how I share and express. And if I attach that to fear, I would not be on this. I wouldn't be doing this. So that's what I'm.
This is Jane. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I thought it was about time I introduced myself to you. I've been listening in for several sessions, and I really enjoy it. And someday I'll get brave enough to turn on my camera too.
Well, thank you for being brave enough to turn on your microphone. It's a
Very
start.
good to meet you, Jane. Hello.
Thank you. Thank you. You all have good things to say. Wonderful things to hear.
Thank you, Jane. Much
Well, we
Thank
see
you.
we
Thank
see
you.
your name and feel like you're a part of the group, or
I'm starting to, yes.
Well, I know it's how I feel. It's like, hi Jane, bye Jane.
I know you get.
You're not. You're here.
But I'm listening.
Thank you.
I'm sitting in the dark. I see that I've been listening to all of us, and my lights haven't gone on, and the pup that's with me here is telling me, letting me know I'm in the dark.
It is.
Yeah. So, I'm not sure if anybody caught it this week, but I actually put the time to make it an hour and a half, because it has been an hour and a half every time. And we're at that hour and a half. So I guess we can just wind down. And I'd just like to, Lorraine, thank you for joining us. I can speak maybe traditionally now. I thank everybody for entertaining. Sometimes I think we're called to do certain things, and I know in my experience, and this is the limited experience of Tim Noah speaking, when I'm called to do something, I just do it fully. If I'm called to say, Lorraine, I love you, I say, Lorraine, I love you. Karen, I love you, I love you. Kathy, I love you, because we can say this. And clearly, Shabana, I love you too. And Jane, I love you too. And Tim, I love you too. Speak to myself. Love is not something that is a commodity. It's not something that can be taken away. It's not something to be rationed. It's something to be shared. And the only way for us to have it is to share it. So these are things that, to be honest, maybe upon first doing them are a bit uncomfortable, but natural. Somehow the natural has become uncomfortable. So uncomfortability is becoming more natural in my experience. Sometimes I'm called to do weird things, like talk about myself as Kathy, but I know that Kathy knows what I'm talking about. So I know I can say it, and I know, and the unity, that indescribable joy and love that is felt, that is the truth. That's what tells me that this is right, that this is right.
And what I'd love to share on that, and I apologize for interrupting, this is the uncomfortable that is safe. This is the uncomfortable that is love. Where the other uncomfortable, I'll speak for myself, meant run. This one is stepping into it, is actually stepping into love.
That's
That
really
helps.
interesting, Kathy, because a week or two ago, Shabana, you had said something to me about being courageous. And I said, well, I don't think it was courageous. And now in hearing what you just said, Kathy, I think it's, it's this environment.
Mm-hmm.
This is an environment of love, mutual love and respect. And so feel pretty comfortable saying whatever I've said so far. Even that kind of thing.
I love you. It's fun because we get to really, for me anyway, when I say I love you, I love you. Not because it's part of what I'm supposed to say or say it back to someone because they said it to me. I'm saying it because I feel it.
Yeah.
Genuinely. Instead of, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Made someone uncomfortable. I love you. And I love saying it. So there.
I love you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And God bless you.
Yeah, that's right. God bless you too.
Thank you. Thank you. I just think like some of these things are like even in our generation, in our traditional view as generation, is like love is like the movie is always the thing that's always for love,
Mm-hmm.
and like we don't have to like we don't have to stop a building from falling down to get love. We just share it to the next person that we see.
The more we do, the more we have.
That's right.
Yeah. I cut you off. I apologize.
It's the ultimate extension, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just have to share something that was very helpful to me, Tim. I was listening to a radio show, and it was bringing up all kinds of memories. And all I did was recite the mantra, I forgive myself for my own misperception of the past.
Excellent.
And it made me feel so much better. My jaw unclenched.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you, Shabana.
Well, I appreciate your writing back to me when I was having a whole lot of trouble with another situation. And you sent me an email, and I looked it up, and I copied down all the stuff. So this came, this is the atonement, but I have my battered old index card, and I didn't even need to pull it out. I've got it memorized.
Well, thank you. And that goes back to the start of our discussion about the only mistake. Is misperceiving the past, my own misperception with the past. I forgive myself, and I forgive myself my mistakes. I'm very. This is appreciation. This is love, and clearly, we'll be next week. We'll be just going on to the next section, which is perception versus knowledge, which is a nice little dichotomy that we can explore. And oh, Kathy, I sent you an email last week, right? I sent you one.
I am.
Yeah, I forgot to remind you through the week. I was going to say I need to schedule a reminder to send to Kathy. This is joy. I forget what we were reminding. Just that we're here now, I guess. But
Yeah. I received the I am.
yes, good.
Mhm.
Good. Well, thank you, Karen, for drafting the email today. Thank
Pleasure.
you, Lorraine, for joining us for the first time and staying until, I guess it's almost 3 a.m. there.
Oh, that's hard.
I'm dying this end. I'm dying.
We're about to hop off. Thank you, Jane, for coming on microphone for the first time. Thank you, Shabana, for joining us and sharing your experience and your lovely photo, and you're muting yourself at the perfect times and unmuting.
Thank you, Tim, for your Zoom room
Right.
and other things.
Now it's always open. It used to be closed, but now it's always open. I get a notification when people pop in, so maybe I'll just come back.
Cool.
And thank you, Kathy, for sharing all of your personal insight and your stories with us and sharing truth from Kathy's perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim, for just being Tim.
That's right. Right back at you, Shabana.
On your cozy couch there where it all started.
It's time to hop off this couch. My foot is falling asleep. So we'll meet back next week. Love
Bye,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.